At best, it might be just a move to agree to disagree. At worst, it could be a breakup of a marriage over irreconcilable differences. But internet Uber giant Google is saying, that's it, we're out, to the Uber giant of a country called China. You might have heard about them. Anyway, to talk about this, two people, RT contributor Wayne Madsen and Greg White, who is a writer for an online business magazine. Wayne, we're going to start with you. The point of all this, give us the background a little bit and why Google is threatening to do this right now.
Well, it's because China basically has a great deal of censorship software that built in, and they've required Google to implement the censorware in its offerings in China. So they've withdrawn to Hong Kong. So anyone who goes to the .China domain for Google is now redirected to the servers in Hong Kong. The issue, I think, really also has a lot to do with the fact that at least 50 countries now around the world have cyber warfare as part of their military strategies. We're going to see a lot more of this government, military, intelligence interference with the internet, as we've seen with China. Certainly, China's not the only country to have implemented this censorware. It was one of the first. It did so with the active help of U.S. companies, including Google. But we see countries in the Arab world, we see other countries also imposing this censorware. And I think this is one of the byproducts of this push for cyber warfare in cyberspace.
Okay. Mr. White, I'm going to go to you now. We just heard from Wayne Madsen here, who talked about maybe just some of the political or the geopolitical underpinnings of this move by, this potential move by Google. But could this just be simply a business move, in your opinion?
No, I don't think Google will be making this decision just based upon business. It's number 2 in China right now to a site called Baidu, which is the key search engine in China. And the market's growing in China astronomically. The opportunities for them to be there over the next 5, 10, 20 years are not something they would just clearly and easily turn down. Instead, I think this is a politically motivated decision by Google to make sure that they're standing by their principles of free information for all, a very Western perspective, and one that's definitely at odds with the Chinese regime.
Okay. I'm going to turn to you now, Wayne. There has, I mean, in one reading of it, there has to be more to this story than just Google saying, well, this is just, we're just sick and tired of the censorship. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I think there's also some fear by China about Google's own connections. We know that Google and the National Security Agency just signed a memorandum of understanding, a cooperative deal where NSA is supposed to help them on security issues. But we also look at Sergey Brin, one of the co-founders, the co-founder with Larry Page of Google, and you look at his background. His father is a mathematics professor at the University of Maryland. University of Maryland's very NSA heavy. That's they host the Joint Quantum Institute, which is a joint activity by NSA and the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Maryland is also a center of excellence for the information assurance research project with NSA and the Department of Homeland Security. So they're looking at Google as this company, and they're saying, my God, look at the connections that Google has with some of the same agencies that would be targeting us for intelligence purposes. Obviously, there's much more to this decision by Google to extricate itself from China. I would also note that we see several proxy servers being set up in China, but the minute they're set up, the Chinese authorities, the Chinese intelligence shut them down as well.
Okay. Mr. White, I'm going to turn to you now. The claim is that there have been other American companies who have tried to do business in China, and they, for whatever reasons, have not been able to pull it off too. So couldn't we just say, I mean, your reaction to that, that's what I want to know. Couldn't we just say that this is just yet another example of another American company that just simply can't do business in China?
Well, I think this is unique with Google because it's in the media sphere. You know, this is about information, and that's, I think, what China is most concerned about. They don't want their information sovereignty to be breached. It's very important for China to have complete dominance in what their domestic population has as an understanding of the world around them and the world within China. Google's reach could severely impair that and their ability to do so, and that's why they're being so active against the moves by Google into Hong Kong. But I think the reality is that it is another case of an American company having trouble in China. But in this case, I think it's really strongly important that it's a media company. I think you're going to see more of this in the future.
Okay, Wayne. Actually, one of the producers here thought of a really good question. How is it that Google, maybe in other countries they do agree to play by that country's rules, but how is it that they're openly flaunting their authority in China, and how is it that they can justify not playing by China's rules?
Well, early on, we saw Google more than happy to comply with the Chinese rules when it came to censoring sites having to do with Tibetan independence, Taiwan, Tiananmen Square, Falun Gong, all these various things that the Chinese would rather not have its population reading about. But I think recently we've seen a lot more in the way of competition between China and the United States. And again, getting back to this cyber warfare, this is a military doctrine that's now practiced by the Chinese People's Liberation Army, by the U.S. Pentagon. And I think what we're seeing is with Baidu in China and Google, an American company, we're just seeing the U.S. and Chinese flags with these companies and ending up in this type of international warfare, which I think spells a very bad future for Internet freedom everywhere.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Wayne Madsen and Greg White, joining us from New York. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us today.